I wanted to go through just a quick example of the way that doctors address whole person impairment. They have to use the AMA guides. It's the 5th edition that we've been using for about 10 years or so now. All the doctors have to use the AMA guides. They can't go outside that book. All of the ratings that they assign have to be within the 4 corners of the AMA guides. But they are granted a little bit of leeway. First of all, they have to address whole person impairment using a strict application. So if you broke your elbow, and there's a section in the AMA guides for broken elbows, the doctor has to first address impairment using a strict application, straight to that section. So if it's a torn meniscus, doctor goes straight to the book where there's a rating for a torn meniscus. It's like 1% whole person impairment, and the doctor has to use that strict application. But case law came down maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago on Almaraz Guzman. It was a couple of cases where the doctor said using a strict application of the AMA guides wasn't the most accurate representation of impairment. The problem is maybe the injured worker does have only a torn meniscus, but 1% whole person impairment doesn't accurately reflect the injured worker's condition once the injured worker reaches PNS status. In that case, the QME, or the primary treating physician, can go to another section of the AMA guides and rate by analogy. So they still can't go outside the guides. They still can't bring in other rating methods. They have to stick within the AMA guides, but they can go to other sections. So maybe you had a torn meniscus, but the most accurate way to rate your impairment would be rating by analogy to a hernia or some sort of back injury. They use oftentimes gait derangement. So even though you have a low back injury, it's 5% WPI, maybe that low back injury really left you with a horrible limp, and so they can rate by analogy to a gait derangement and do it that way. I've got a couple of examples here I can put up on the screen real quick. The first one, the QME addresses impairment and says, I considered Almaraz Guzman, and I think a strict application of the AMA guides most accurately reflects impairment in this case. The doctor then provides all of the strict ratings using the AMA guides, and that's all there is to it. Switching gears to another report here, the doctor went through the injured worker's hand injury or finger injury and noted a strict application of the AMA guides has no impairment, 0% WPI. So even though in this case the injured worker has an injury, still has subjective complaints, and in fact has work restrictions, they should avoid certain activities at work to prevent any further injury, there's no whole person impairment. It makes little sense. And so the doctor notes that's not the most accurate representation or the most accurate reflection of the injured worker's condition, because an injury did take place, they are left with work restrictions, and there's something wrong. So they rated by analogy to another part of the AMA guides. Really, the burden is on the injured worker when the doctor does this. They have to be able to support why a strict application isn't the most accurate and why a rating by analogy is. So there is some work that the QME or the PTP has to go through to explain their rationale or their reasoning for why they used an Almaraz Guzman approach. But this kind of gives a short encapsulation. The doctor is not stuck with a strict application. If that's not the most accurate representation, the doctor can use another section of the AMA guides to find a section or a rating that's more accurate, that more accurately reflects what the injured worker, their condition at the time of MMI or PNS status. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button down below and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos.